Why make your kids memorize all of this? The answer to every question they could ever ask is sitting right here in their pockets. You've probably heard some version of that from a skeptical friend, a curious neighbor, maybe a relative across the Thanksgiving table. And it's a fair question. So many kids today are walking around with 1,000 encyclopedias available on a device. Meanwhile, your kids are falling behind learning useless trivia from a book, like from paper. So why memorize? Why recite? Why waste these years doing rote memory when a search bar can tell you in half a second? Wouldn't this time be better spent teaching them how to vibe code? But information is not the same thing as understanding. It's not the same thing as discernment. A search bar can hand your kids a fact. It cannot hand them a furnished mind. Memorizing isn't about cramming children full of trivia. It's about furnishing a mind. It's about storing up the true, the good, and the beautiful. This week, your students are storing treasures from nearly every category God filled His world with. Numbers, words, languages, history, geography. Let's walk through them. But first, I want to show you something. This week's fine arts project is the upside down drawing. Here's the trick if you've never done it. You take a line drawing, flip it upside down, and ask your students to copy it exactly as they see it. Oftentimes, the upside down copy comes out better than the right side up one would have. Why? Because right side up, the brain recognizes the picture. Oh, that's a ship. And the moment it does, the hand stops drawing the actual lines on the page and starts drawing the symbol it already has stored for a ship. The hull, the sail, and so on. Flip the image over, and the brain can't recognize it anymore. So the hand is finally forced to draw what's really there. Your student's hand reaches into the storehouse in their mind and draws whatever is on the shelf. We are always drawing from what we've stored, whether we mean to or not. The question is, what's on the shelves? If we don't deliberately fill young minds with what is true and good and beautiful, the world is more than happy to stock those shelves for us, by default, with whatever is loud and cheap and forgettable. Memorizing is how we furnish the storehouse, on purpose. Here's how we're filling it this week. This week in math, your students are working on the 5s and 6s. The 5s are the friendly ones. No need for a song for this one. They have a rhythm already. 5, 10, 15, 20, on and on. We could do this forever. But the 6s? The 6s are the hill. In fact, if your students are going to get tripped up anywhere for the first time while memorizing the times tables, it's right around 6 times 7. And that's normal if that happens to your 3rd or 4th grader. It's the hump. And the only way we have to get over it is through repetition. Memorizing multiplication facts is not outdated. It is still necessary so that one day your students won't have to stop and calculate 6 times 7 in the middle of a chemistry problem or a geometry proof. They'll just know it. That's what it means to know something by heart. Speaking of by heart, this week's science fact is the 3 kinds of muscle: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. Skeletal muscle is the kind you command. You decide to move your arms, and they move. Smooth muscle runs your internal organs and does the jobs you never think about, like digesting food or adjusting your eyes to the light. But cardiac muscle, that's the heart. The one muscle that runs faithfully, beating and beating and beating on repetition without a single conscious thought from you. I love that cardiac muscle landed on this week's page because it's a picture of what memory work becomes. There are some facts or some memories that you have to work to recall, similar to lifting your arms or your legs on purpose. But a fact that you've truly stored, a fact that you know by heart, that's a different experience. There's no effort required. Someone says 1773 and you immediately think, oh, Boston Tea Party. That's amazing. And that little word, cardiac, doesn't stay little. In Challenge A, your students study human anatomy so closely that the heart gets a whole section to itself. They draw the chambers, the valves, everything. And in Challenge 2 Biology, they study muscle tissue under a microscope to see what it's made of. What's a vocabulary word at age 7 becomes a whole world at age 14, but only if the word is already there. In Latin this week, your students are memorizing pronouns: hic, this, hoc, same, ipso and ipsum, him, cui, whose, quod, that, eam, it, illum, him. These words are easy to memorize, so they're easy to shrug off. But hold on to these because Latin pronouns are some of the hardest working words your students will ever meet. Whose what? That, which that. To translate a pronoun, you have to reach back and find the thing that it's pointing to. In Challenge 3, your students translate Caesar and Cicero, and in Challenge 4, they translate Virgil, the Aeneid, in the original Latin. And in real Latin like that, an entire meaning of a sentence can swing on tracking a single pronoun back to the right word. The students who memorize these little words at age 7 have years of experience to draw from when that time comes. This week's English fact: a past participle is a verb plus ed used as an adjective or a verb. When your students start paying attention to this pattern, they'll start seeing it everywhere. Take the verb disguise. It's something you do. But add ed, and now disguised can stop acting like a verb and start acting like an adjective, describing someone, like disguised colonists. Which leads us to this week's history sentence. In 1773, colonists disguised as Mohawks dumped tea from the British East India Company into the Boston Harbor. There's your past participle, disguised. A verb, wearing an adjective's hat. An example from the week's English fact sitting right there in the history fact. But look at everything else packed into that sentence. Almost everyone knows the Boston Tea Party, the fuzzy version anyway. Some colonists threw some tea in the water because of taxes. Your students are storing more than the general overview though. The year, 1773, the disguise, Mohawks. The target, not just the British, but the British East India Company. And the place, Boston Harbor. That's why we memorize these sentences, even with our 4-year-olds. We're specific with our facts now because we're laying the groundwork for something even bigger. In Challenge B, students read the biographies of Patrick Henry, Paul Revere, Ben Franklin, and more. In Challenge 1, they read Johnny Tremain, a novel about a boy in Boston swept into the events leading to the Revolution. The Tea Party is among them. Also in Challenge 1, they read the very words that rebellion produced, the Declaration of Independence, Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech. And in Challenge 3, they study the whole of the American story. Every one of those doors opens more easily because the names and the dates are already on the shelf. Your students don't meet the Boston Tea Party for the first time as teenagers. They greet it like an old friend, and through it, they're able to make enough connections to answer a big question. What made the American Revolution possible? That's the topic of circumstance, one of the 15 classical skills, and it's a big one. Answering that requires knowledge, not just of history, but of geography, geopolitics, philosophy, science, church history. I mean, what does India have to do with the story of the American Revolution? To truly understand, it takes an education where all of the subjects are intentionally integrated. The timeline this week reaches way, way back. Hinduism in India, the Phoenicians and the alphabet, Olmecs of Mesoamerica, Israelite exodus and desert wandering, Israelite conquest and judges, Greek Dark Ages, and Israel's United Kingdom. Picture your students' memories as libraries, shelves going up, one card at a time, so every new fact has somewhere to live. Let's take a look at one card on this week's shelf, the Greek Dark Ages. Out of that shadowy stretch of history came the stories behind Homer's epics. In Challenge 4, your students will read the Iliad and the Odyssey. They're little cards on the shelf now, but they're great books later. So, you may hear it argued that rote memory is the enemy of creativity, that stuffing children with facts leaves no room for imagination. But classical educators know that the opposite is true. In Hesiod's Theogony, Mnemosyne is the mother of the 9 muses of history, poetry, music, astronomy, and dance. Every art, every science, every act of imaginations the ancients could name came from memory. Creativity isn't the opposite of memory. Creativity, invention, is the child of memory. You can't make something out of an empty mind. Just like that upside down drawing, your students can only ever create from what they've already stored. This week, we're not memorizing trivia so our kids can be impressive. We're furnishing the minds that our children will live inside for the rest of their lives. These 4-year-olds chanting the sixes, they're stocking the very shelves that their 17-year-old selves will reach into for a translation, for a proof, for an argument, for a poem. One last thing, because I can't let a good analogy go. This week, your students memorized the Boston Tea Party, a story about cargo that got taxed and seized and eventually thrown into the sea. Everything in that harbor can be taken. But the treasure you're storing in your children this week, the facts hidden safely away inside a furnished mind, that's an inheritance no king can tax, no company can ship off, and no one can ever throw overboard. The cloud server can't wipe it. It can't be redacted, edited, or modified. It's theirs for good. You're doing good work. You're not raising kids who can only look things up. You're raising kids with something stored inside, something to reach for, and something to create with. Because learning is a lifestyle, and you're an everyday educator.